Hey guys, so for those of you that may not know, we have just passed our first anniversary in marriage. It's been a mad year, and I think we just wanted to just sit down and film a little video just kind of about our first year.
Obviously we've only been married for a year. We've been together for almost 7 years, and yeah, I think we just would have found something like this quite helpful, just to manage expectations and kind of I guess just the difficulties of marriage maybe, but also the good bits to look forward to. So we're happy to be really honest. So I've got quite a few questions actually. Some of them have like similar themes, so I'll try and like
Group them.
That's what we're going for. You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Good.
All right. So we got together when we were, we met when we were like 11 and 12.
Yep.
So ages ago. We got together 2 years later at a wonderful festival called Creation Fest down here in Cornwall. Big ups, Creation Fest. And so, like Lou said, we've been together nearly 7 years now. Kind of, we didn't live in the same area, so kind of a little bit long distance. 4 years ago, I moved to a city called Plymouth to go to uni. A year later, Luce joined me, and we kind of started a life there. We got engaged, we got married, just over a year ago now. A month into marriage, 2 months into marriage, we got thrown a curveball, and I won't bore you with the full details, but we're basically now moving to Canada. And so we've been on this crazy journey of like getting ready for this move, and then trying to navigate that in a coronavirus world as well, which has thrown a lot of curveballs.
Yeah, most of the people that ask me these questions kind of know me and us, and the fact that we are Christians. So our viewpoint, I guess, will come from a Christian perspective, but that doesn't mean we're like, this is our viewpoint. We're not like condemning anyone that's like done it differently. Just people have asked us, knowing our relationship as well, so we thought that might be helpful. Right, first question. What doubts did you both have about getting married young? Do you want to go first?
I mean, like you said, like we had been together since we were quite young, and by the time we got married, or at least we got engaged, we'd been together for 5 years or so, and kind of grown up together through growing up together.
Yeah,
like
that's
we
true.
we had shared the same experiences. Any like hardships whilst growing up, or hardship as a teen, we had experienced together. So I wouldn't say that I had any doubts going into marriage, that like as young as we did it.
Yep.
I think like my only like kind of worries were just we were still in uni.
Yep.
And just kind of knowing how we were gonna support family and, you know, provide for each other. But it was never a factor that changed anything, I think.
Yeah, no, I guess I'd say the same. Maybe not so much doubts, like there was never a, is it going to work or not? I don't think I ever felt like that. I think doubts more in, now I have to navigate how to be a wife, was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that kind of thing, rather than I don't know if I can make our marriage work. Yeah, I guess just because of our age, I was like, I don't know how to be a 20-year-old wife, because I don't have anybody around me that's 20 and married. So
yeah, and I think actually like a lot of the doubts that we may have had weren't in marriage. They were how our marriage would affect, you know, we were still in uni, so how does that look like being married?
Like with friends and stuff.
With friends, yeah. I mean, we lived with people kind of all throughout university. But yeah, no doubts.
Next question. Do you think it would have made a difference if you got married later compared to now? I'm going to say yes, in that we were kind of getting to a point where, like we keep saying, we've been together for a really long time, and I think if we hadn't have got married when we did, and I'm not saying people should get married for this reason, but there potentially would have been different strain on our relationship.
In what way, Liz?
As in like from when we'd got together at 13, 14, we knew we were going to be in it for keeps.
Right.
That if we'd been together for five years when we got engaged, and there was no talk of getting married, I'd be thinking like, you know, what's going on? But that's just our relationship. That's not to put that on anybody else that's in that situation. That's just me and where I'm coming from, because from day dot we were like, we're going to get married.
Yeah, and I think actually you're right, but I think actually the strains on our relationship, I mean,
like sex and stuff.
Yeah. Thank you. I didn't. Wasn't going to be around.
We could say the S word, right?
Harder and harder the longer you, pun intended. The longer you can have in a relationship, the more you can have way of temptation, I guess.
And being at uni and stuff, like we were independent, so we had, you know, choices to make, and like, you know, really be strict with ourselves and stuff like that. So that's not to say that if you're struggling with temptations or difficulties in your relationship,
you should just get married.
Yeah, that marriage is a giant plaster to fix that. That's just kind of, in terms of that question, I think it would have made a difference. Yes. Was there anything that really changed for you once you were married? You're a lovely couple. Thank you. Yeah, like we said, we didn't live together before we were married. We didn't have sex before we were married. But even down to, like, I think our relationship is very different now.
We had to navigate, first of all, living together, and that was made a lot easier because we were at uni together. I think we spent a lot of time doing we already knew what made each other like tick because we would spend a lot of time together kind of throughout the day and in the evenings anyway. So we kind of did life together just without the living together part, I guess.
Yeah, so we'd like cook together and stuff in the evenings.
We'd do food shops,
Yeah. So we didn't live together, but we kind of navigated our lives together a little bit, I guess.
We didn't have to like massively change a lot in that sense. But even down to like, we had to learn how to argue.
Yeah, that's true.
We were really fortunate in that, like, up until we were engaged, like, we just didn't argue, like, about anything serious anyway. And the second we got engaged, like, the arguments started on different topics, like money, which I'm sure we'll come to later on.
Oh, money question.
But actually, we realised pretty soon into marriage that we were terrible at arguing. Like, we just didn't know how to do it well. Like, it would always end up in none of us were able to get our point across, and so we didn't really feel heard and stuff. So I think that's one of the ways in which kind of things changed.
That's true.
But actually, just in learning loads about each other, we learned very quickly that we had to just kind of commit and give everything.
So if Noah loves me 100%, then I feel loved, and I love him back 100%. We are both getting 100% of each other's love. Does that make sense?
Or if you try and hold on to it and, you know, a bit more reserved, you're only getting a portion of that. So I don't know, like we learned that pretty early on.
We had a couple of questions about wedding planning, and I think since I asked people to ask questions, I've been thinking about maybe doing a full video about wedding planning, especially on a budget, because I feel like that's a video in itself. But very quickly, I would just say, if you are planning a wedding or looking to be planning a wedding soon, one of the best things we did was we knew we were going to get married at some point. So I think probably about our circumstance was different. We had a conversation. I knew Noah was going to propose to me at some point in the near future. So I think probably 6 to 8 months before we actually got engaged, I started saving. Just because that then became a little bit of a buffer that when we were engaged, we could get married quite quickly afterwards, because we had deposit money ready to go and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah,
and I think a lot of people do it anyway, but because we knew we were going to get married, we had almost had time to kind of think about what we wanted.
Yes.
So, and although things were a little bit different, like to start off with, we didn't have the budget that we perhaps wanted. And actually our wedding looked very different to how it looked on paper when we were first wedding planning. But like, we went through a process earlier on that it meant by the time we were engaged, we could kind of get straight into it
We
and
knew
not
what,
be too overwhelmed, I guess.
we knew what was like important to us because we'd already had that kind of conversation beforehand, so we knew where we wanted our money to go. And also, just a very small tip, people will ask if they can help you and offer to do things, let them do it. Know where to like draw the line on what you want to do and like what you don't want people like meddling in, I guess. But you also will really appreciate the help when it gets kind of, especially down to the last couple of months.
Yeah.
But if you do want like a full video on wedding planning or want to ask like me or Noah questions on it,
Slide into DMs
slide into the DMs.
or comments. Oh, you've got a lot of questions.
Yeah. Right, so what were everyone's reactions at uni when people found out you were married?
I think they're kind of expecting it. We were just that
Yeah, that's
different.
true.
We weren't like a normal couple in uni, I don't think.
I think, so our uni mates were so supportive, but they knew it was
We
coming.
have the best uni
We
mates.
do. Love you guys, miss you. I would say the only difference I had, and I don't know if it was my course, but like as a female at university, there was a lot of stigma around why would you get married and not kind of live your life and get a career behind you and that kind of stuff. I think a lot of people saw it as a tie. So I did face a little bit of, and I don't think anybody was trying to be nasty. It was just, why would you do that and tie yourself down?
I think your course is quite progressive as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
I had a lot of, why did you change your last name? And that's all fine. I'm not criticising anybody that asked, but that was our decision. So I think people were pretty chill. They kind of expected it. You know, you do get the occasional person that was like, oh, why are you tying yourself down? But we'd already been together for so long that people only knew us as together.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably quite helpful. How did you navigate your relationship whilst at uni?
I don't know, I think it was pretty easy. I think we spent so long, because like I briefly said at the start, we were kind of long distance. Us both being in uni was such a brand new and exciting thing for us that I think we quite naturally just kind of stepped into that.
Yeah.
I don't remember, I think the only thing like to start off with was actually just like when you moved to uni was trying to ensure that like you were spending time with other people
I was just about to say,
friends.
yeah.
And
So I was really worried about coming to uni and not like having my own friends. So I really tried to make an effort with my flatmates. Just circumstances meant that I didn't have a great first year in terms of the people I lived with. That meant that I then very quickly spent a lot of time with Noah and his housemates, so they became my friends. So we were lucky actually that our friendship groups were that ended up being the same. Our church friends were the same. So in that respect we were very lucky that we didn't really have to be like, oh, I'm spending time with my friends, because they were our friends. But at the same time there were things that like the guys did together or Noah's house did together that I wasn't a part of because I didn't live with them. So I think it was just knowing that, you know, whatever, like no one's malicious in their intentions. Like if you do try and draw a line somewhere, it's not like because no one wanted me or no one wanted you. But yeah, I would say we were quite lucky that our friends were very similar. We still did have like separate groups of friends, like the odd like pocket of friends. Like I had friends on my course and stuff like that. But
I think the best thing about being at uni together and trying to navigate like a kind of relationship at uni was that nothing really had to change. We kind of just did everything that we were doing together. So everything you do at uni, like if you were studying in the library, well, you just do it together.
Yeah,
so
that's
that
true.
was really nice because we would have like whole days where we would just go get a meal deal and then sit in the library all day and like not necessarily talk to each other all the time because we're studying.
Yeah.
But like that makes things easier because then you're not trying to like fight against each other. Because we were both at uni, both going through the same motions.
But even that, like, we work very differently. So Noah would work, like, he could easily work through the night, whereas I would rather get up early in the morning and go to the library. So sometimes, like, the way we worked didn't cross over very well. Like, I definitely found that when we got married, that I remember waking up one day at like 7 in the morning and Noah had just got back from the library, and that we kind of had to be like, oh, are we even seeing each other at the minute? But you do, like, certain things comes in waves. Like, we were very busy with uni at that point, so
yeah, I think like the main thing is that, like, just to kind of be chill with each other while we were both at uni together. We both have things to do at uni.
Yes.
So not we need to be together every second of every day and like be really close all the time. That actually, like, I think it was different for us because we had been long distance before, but actually in learning that it's okay if we didn't see each other for a few days, even though you're only down the road.
Yeah.
That was quite weird to navigate.
What were your pre-marriage fears and did they come true? I was worried Noah might have 7 toes.
What?
And they...
Just the girl from Cornwall.
Ah, rude!
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. I think you get told a lot that in your first year of marriage you're going to argue about stuff. I know Noah said that we kind of had to work out how to argue, but we don't argue a lot still in the grand scheme of things. So I think people warned us about things that actually weren't a problem.
We had very few people that told us that marriage was good.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember distinctly, we had just got engaged and had just got into work and told everyone that had just got engaged, and all the reactions were in a jokey way, but it was just like, oh, here you go now, like, that's it, you're tied
Ball
down,
and
ball and chain, like, oh, yeah, why did you do, like, all these different jokes.
You've ruined your life.
And I think, like, obviously I know these people are joking and these people were happily married, but I think that was, people were very, very quick to try and manage expectations for marriage rather than tell us how good marriage can be and is.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of our biggest challenges before we were married. Just in that we were so excited to, like, start this life together, and every time we spoke to, like, Christians as well, who should be advocates for marriage and happily married, yeah, we were almost kind of taught to manage our expectations. And in reality, we've had a pretty good first year of marriage. We've gone through some absolute crap, but I would never turn around and go, oh, our first year of marriage was so hard and blah, blah, blah.
Right, so I got a lot of questions about finances. Again, this is just how we do things.
There literally is no right or wrong way.
Yeah, so don't take this as like it, but I'm just going to lump them together. We had somebody who asked how we got a house.
We don't.
we were renting. We were really fortunate to be able to rent in our first year, but our place was lovely in that it had, like, we had a roof over our head and we were warm, but
we had some friends.
we had a little bit of a mouse problem and a little bit of a damp problem, and you know, we can put our best bits on Instagram, but reality was there were some days that it was really, really not nice. We had a lot of friends with beautiful homes that we'd go to, come home and just look at our flat and be like, oh, this sucks, like, I want a home that we feel proud of, but we know we'll get there one day. So
our flat did us good. It was lovely.
It was good, but please don't look at us and think that we've got it all sorted. We're actually now currently living with parents for the foreseeable, so there's that. I'm gonna lump these two together. So, have your finances changed now that you're married? How do you sort your finances? Do you have a joint account? And somebody just put finances, please.
Yes.
Do you want to explain how we do things?
Like I said, when we were talking about kind of arguing, before we got engaged or married, we didn't argue, and then the first thing we ever argued about properly was money. And like Lou said, this is just our situation, but we grew up with very kind of different mindsets around finances and money.
Noah's approach, I guess, to money was more that if you've earned it, you're allowed to treat yourself with it. Not that you were silly with money at all, but you knew how to enjoy yourself with money.
Yeah, I think it's more of the mindset of like, actually, it's great to save, and I did a little bit, but you know, money is there to make your life better or whatever. And so we came in very different mindsets. I would say you were scared of money.
I'm a bit too reserved in that, yeah, saving is great, but I then worry about money massively and need to have X amount to know that I'm going to be okay. And all those things are good, but I then won't buy anything for myself, or feel like we can't do anything because I have this idea that, you know, if we spend money, that's it. We're going to be homeless.
Just before we got married, I blew $2,000 on guitar equipment of our own money. So
still not over it. No,
and so, like, going back to the original point, our mindsets on money are very different still, but we're learning. And so there's a way that worked for us. I mean, we spoke to a few people, we spoke to our parents, we spoke to friends, and there are so many different ways of kind of sorting out finances. A common way is that you have a joint account, like a current account, and that's where everything you get paid goes into, is where your bills go out of. And then you each have separate accounts, and you budget, and in your budget each month you get almost like an allowance of whatever works for you, and then that's money you can spend and not feel guilty about spending. You don't need to ask the other person like if you should spend it or whatever. For us, that just didn't work really, did it?
That would have been our ideal model, I think, and hopefully one day we'll get there. But just to give you an idea of how we had to do things, Noah worked, I worked, we had student loan. So we had to have separate accounts for our student loan to be paid into. However, when it came in, we put it in the same account. And Noah's wages went into that account. When we found out about Canada, which is when I got my job, my wages went into a pot for Canada. I needed to kind of learn that Noah's money was my money and my money was his money, so we kept everything in one pot. Just financially, that's how it worked best for us, because we didn't always know how much we would have left over to give kind of an allowance. If you don't know, student finance works in 3 chunks throughout the year rather than by month. So you can budget monthly, but it was a little bit tricky, I guess, to figure out what we would have. So our rent came out when those three student finance payments came in, but our bills were monthly. Yeah, all our bills were monthly, except our water was quarterly, and so it was a bit confusing. So we just put it all in one place. That means that most of our money comes out of one joint account. I have access to it, Noah has access to it. It's in both of our names. The only thing we do kind of separate is if I got money for birthday or Christmas, that's mine. Same for Noah. And also anything so I sold a few bits on Depop that were my own clothes, so I got to keep that little bit of money and then use that for whatever I want. Same with Noah and his music stuff. If he was to sell any of his music stuff, or does any work for his music and mastering, link that in the bio.
Mixing and mastering, but thanks, babes.
I really tried, I'm sorry. That's Noah's money. So that's just how it makes sense for us to divide things.
But like you said, in an ideal world,
yes.
The only problem we've had with this, and just with our mindsets, is that just looking back, I'm quicker to spend our money than
Mhm.
you are, and you will often then not spend money because I'm spending money.
Yes.
And so there's been a few areas of like, not arguments, but like a bit of contention
Yep.
where we can just see how it might not work long term going forward. But in
Mhm.
our first year of marriage, just in the way that our finances have been coming in, it's been perfect. However, moving forward, better, I reckon, with the model of both of our salaries go into one account,
Mhm.
and from that we work out how much we can afford to spend. That will probably be what we do going forward. But like we said, there's no like right or wrong way to do it. We know people that like literally just have separate bank accounts and pay from everything from separate bank accounts.
Mhm.
One person does food shops, one person does bills, and they don't work money out any other way. They just spend whatever's on there.
And that's great. I think, yeah, it just comes down more to my mindset. That's how I think about it. So this is how it works best for us.
Yes.
Right. How to have healthy communication in marriage. We've kind of touched on this, but the only thing I would add is 5 love languages.
Yes.
If you've never heard of 5 love languages, like read up about it. I'm gonna include the link in the description because I feel like that is one of the main things that has got us through this first year.
Yeah.
Basically, it is 5 different ways that people feel most loved and give their love. That for us, I think, helped massively with communication.
I think it's really trying to learn like the differences you have in marriage. So that kind of is a tool to help you learn that. I think there are a few other ones out there. I mean, our vicar, Ollie Ryder, shout out, kind of always taught about hedgehog and rhino, which is just quite cool to figure out. Actually, hedgehogs in conflict curl up in a ball and put their spikes out. Rhinos charge. And so we very quickly found out that Luce is quite emotionally driven. So if she's, the first thing she'll do is kind of like charge, whereas I'm a little bit more of a hedgehog.
Yes.
Until I get like the confidence.
And then we kind of swap.
And then we swap a little bit. And so like just a few of these like different techniques and just kind of finding out about each other just really helps in communication.
I think as well on that, we have listened to some really good podcasts. I'm going to link both of them as well because they've been really good. One is One Extraordinary Marriage and one is As For Me and My House. But both of those really talk about communication. They talk about other things, but they're really open in marriage. So I would recommend listening to those as well.
Also, I think it's a bit of a taboo area, but if you are really struggling to communicate with each other, and if you are perhaps arguing a lot more, don't be too proud about asking for help outside 100%. Of your marriage. I'm sure we'll touch on it a little bit later, but in our first year of marriage, we've seen counsellors and therapists for various different reasons, but actually ultimately it's helped us communicate. And I think it's all too easy to be too proud and to try and make things work yourself, when actually there are people that are qualified to help out, and you don't need to go to a marriage counsellor if your marriage is broken. I mean, people recommend that you go to a marriage counsellor when your marriage is great and you want to learn how to communicate more or have better sex or whatever it is. Like, look for help and don't go at it alone.
We'll just do a few like quick fire questions.
We've got to do a big sex one then.
Yeah, we'll do a big sex one, don't worry.
We'll do big sex.
But I also feel like that's a missed one about finance. Somebody asked, do you use apps to help with budgeting and managing money? Yes, we do. The best one that we can recommend is this one called Chip that we use. That basically works out what you can save. You can alter it, it's up to you, but it helps us to save money that we don't really notice. And it's been super helpful with birthdays and Christmases and meals out and things like that we use that money and it doesn't feel, like when you have cash in your purse and you kind of don't feel like that's actually your money.
It's kind of like that.
It's kind of like that.
It doesn't save a lot each time, so you don't notice it going out, but actually 6 months later all of a sudden you've got a couple £100 in there that is really nice, like Lou said, to help pay for expenses like birthdays and stuff that we don't necessarily want to spend our money on, and notice that going out.
Yeah.
But it's also been a blessing sometimes where it's been a hard week and we just really just want to spend some time together and want to go out and not to cook. And we realise that we've got more than enough in there to pay for a nice meal out.
Yeah.
And so that's been a massive blessing as well.
So I'd recommend that to anyone, whether you're in a relationship or not.
Yeah.
Right, quick fire.
Right.
What does a God-centered marriage look like to you, Noah Gilbert?
To me.
To you.
I think like the fruits of our marriage, I think, change depending on how.
Sorry, just sounded funny.
The fruits of our marriage change depending on how God-centered we're being.
Yes.
We argue less if we are focusing on God.
100%. We definitely need to get better at this. I'm not at all saying that we've got that down to a T. But like Noah said, you know, if I'm spending time with God and Noah's spending time with God, I notice that we're a lot kinder, gentler with each other. We have more patience with each other, definitely. I think something that we really want to work on is doing that together. So I'd say we're quite good at praying together, but we don't really read the word together that often. So that's definitely something that we want to work on.
Yeah, also encouraging each other, like in our faith.
Yes.
And kind of like enabling each other to grow rather than kind of restricting each other.
What is the main thing you wish people had told you or warned you about? Sex not being like the films.
Yeah.
No one really talked to us much about sex before we were married. I wish people had been open with us about. I also understand it's a very personal topic, but that would have been massively helpful for what we've been through. So leading on to that,
Segway. Sorry, did you know Segway isn't spelled Segway? As in, you know, Segway is in like the thing that you like.
Yeah.
It's not spelled the same.
How's it spelled?
Like Segue. As in, so Segway is Segway.
Yeah.
But if it's a segue into something, Segue. I think. But it's not the same.
Well then.
I know. Sorry.
Right, so I had somebody say, I can't think of a specific question on sex, but I'd be interested in hearing about this topic as the church doesn't talk much about healthy sex and marriage and how to honour God in it.
So, I think we are massive advocates for kind of healthy talks about sex. Since we've been married, I think we've spoken to more other married couples about sex than any other topic.
Yeah.
Because, like that person just said, our experience, it may not be your experience, is that, especially growing up in the church, like the church doesn't talk about sex in a particularly healthy way. And topics are quite often on love and relationships are very shallow, kind of going through the Bible and talking about where God talks about sex, that he made sex, whatever. But we have spoken to far too many married couples that are struggling with sex now because of guilt and fear and shame created by growing up in the church. We realised quite early on into our marriage that like sex wasn't easy.
Our honeymoon was terrible.
Yeah.
Just
we had a great time, but you know, the picture of your honeymoon is it's just really romantic, and we had a really nice time on our honeymoon.
But there was so much pressure, not put on by like each other, but we collectively found a pressure that our honeymoon was going to fix all our problems, and it didn't. So
we went to a doctor, which, as Lee said, like isn't easy, and eventually we were referred to a psychosexual therapist.
If you are struggling with anything like that, it's like, yes, it's a little bit embarrassing, it might feel uncomfortable, but the best thing you can do in that scenario is get some help from somebody. It was not at all comfortable, you know, inviting people into that side of our lives, but we have been married, like you said, for just over a year, and you know, the difference to where we are now from a year ago is crazy. Not even just down to our sex life, but just intimacy in general, and you know, how we communicate. It's literally like
it's
the whole
marriage, isn't it?
The whole shebang.
And we had like a consultation session with her, and went through kind of the issue, and she said it's completely normal that people go through it, and it's a largely mental thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she was kind of going through what caused this, and one of the very last questions she asked us was if we were religious. And upon hearing that we were Christians, she was like, kind of, there's your problem then. And what she meant by that was that she sees so many clients that have come up through the church that for their whole kind of life growing up, they're taught that sex is wrong before marriage. You should, like, it's something you should be avoided. It's bad. It's dirty. It's this. It's that. It's that. And they're taught that by the church, or people within the church at least. And then they get to their wedding night, or they get married, and all of a sudden you should be good at sex. Sex is really good. You should be having it as often as possible. You should be doing this. You should be doing this. And that mindset flips overnight. And that doesn't physically happen. You have years of something being drilled into your mind that something is bad, and you can't undo that. Yeah, and not everybody goes through this, but we've since spoken to a number of people that have gone through exactly the same thing. The Bible teaches us that sex is good and it's great, and it's intended for marriage.
So no, we're not advocating that
it's okay before marriage.
Yes, but we're also not condemning anyone that has done before marriage. I think it's just a topic that needs to be talked about within the church.
I think just to like summarise that, our experience hasn't been perfect, and you're not alone if yours hasn't either, even if you've not gone through the same thing that we have, or if you've gone through similar things.
But thank you very much if you did ask any questions. They were really great. I didn't answer everything, but I hope that we answered kind of all the topics and themes that we got asked. If you have any questions, then feel free to send us a message, ask in the comments, anything like that.
Or if you want a specific video about any of the topics that you've covered today. We could have spoken for a lot longer on every single topic.
We talk a lot, in case you didn't know.
We do talk a lot. Like, especially around money and sex, I think we just have so much more that we would love to talk about. So if you are interested, then kind of please let us know.
And we'll do that for you.
And we will do that just for you.
But yeah, thank you very much for watching. We'll leave like all the things that we mentioned in the description down there. But yeah, that's us, over and out, and all that.
Comment, like, subscribe.
Do you reckon we can do that?
Yeah.
We're good enough to do that, yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.